What's up? It's Tom. Hope you had a nice weekend. Let's talk some ball. The Minnesota Twins, they lost today, but we can still bask in the glory of that 13-game winning streak that was highlighted by a 34-inning scoreless streak. Both of those streaks, just remarkable. That's the longest scoreless streak in Minnesota Twins history since they moved to Minnesota, and probably going to be the longest winning streak of anybody this season, odds are. Just a remarkable run for the Twins. It did end today, Sunday, losing 5-2. But, part of that that scoreless streak and winning streak, Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez each delivered 6 shutout innings in Milwaukee on Friday and Saturday. Just great performances out of those two. Zebby Matthews gets called up. He's taken Simeon Woods-Richardson's rotation spot, at least for now, and walks 3 guys in 3 innings. That's the most un-Zebby-like thing of that line of his today. Got knocked around a little bit, but did strike out 5. But the 3 walks, that was, again, unusual. 71 pitches in 3 innings as well. Zebby, very inefficient start, but not going to dwell on the one negative thing going on here when there's so much more positive. The Twins have, played themselves well back above 500. The Twins are, among the better teams in the American League all of a sudden. And, it's early in the season still. There's a reason why they say don't look in the standings until Memorial Day. And I realize we're creeping up on that, but lots can change fast early on in the year, and the Twins are proof of that. And, once again, guys like Christian Vasquez, guys like Cody Clemens, helping step up because Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa went on the injured list. We'll take a look at all these moves in just a moment. But you saw Ryan Jeffers had a massive game on Saturday, a 4-hit game with a home run. Royce Lewis got his first homer of the season today, almost got another one. So even though the Twins have been only winning basically since he came back, which is wonderful. He hasn't been doing a ton, so it was nice to see him get into one. But yeah, just a great stretch of success for the big club. We'll talk about some minor league stuff and the highlights in just a moment here. But just kind of want to send that along. And, all of these injuries, super unfortunate. Here's kind of all of the activity. It felt like they were sacrificing a player's health for each win they were getting. Like Willie Castro's banged up. There's a bunch of guys who are not even on the IL who are banged up right now too. But all this activity, all this movement meant that Ryan Fitzgerald, at 30 years old, got to make his Major League debut. All this meant that Carson McCusker got to make his Major League debut this weekend. Just amazing feeling to watch those guys in the big leagues. And, forever, no matter what happens, they can say they made it. They made it to the show. That is amazing. If you're considering where those guys came from. Carson McCusker played, I think, parts of 3 seasons in indie ball. Ryan Fitzgerald couldn't even get an indie ball opportunity straight out of college. He had to wait a season to get an opportunity to play indie ball. He was signed by the Red Sox and was in their system for a real long time. Just really warmed my heart to see that. Those guys are major leaguers now. But, yep, Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton, talked about them in my last video on Thursday. They collided. You've probably seen that by now. Look nasty, and they both have been placed on the 7-day concussion IL. That's a mysterious injury. You never know how long it's going to take. You never know how guys are going to come back from that. It's a scary thing. It's a brain injury. Call it like it is. So the Twins, they've played really well with Correa not playing great. He's always great in the field, but he hasn't hit super well this year at all. So maybe they can kind of continue to keep the ball rolling in the lineup. That's a pretty big blow defensively at the very least. And of course, we know Correa's potential is all-star caliber player. Byron Buxton had been playing so great and playing outfield like exclusively, just like the most he's played. And, he's going to be missed in the field and at the plate. But the Twins kept it rolling here. They got the streak to 13 without those guys. Not complete without those guys, of course, but, they extended a couple of games without them. The kind of shakedown, how all these guys got fit into the big picture was that Michael Tonkin and Luke Keeschel were both transferred from the 15-day to the 60-day injured list. So those guys... Tonkin had been rehabbing, and it wasn't going so good. So I was curious how that was going to go. He's been kind of shut down, basically, and they'll try it again to see if he can ramp up. Danny Coulomb also was placed on the injured list today, the 15-day IL for Danny Coulomb. That's a concern. It's an elbow issue, but he said he's been dealing with it all year, and he's pitched really well. So maybe it just got to the point where he just needed some rest. Anytime you hear about, I think it was forearm, if I had said elbow, that's usually a precursor to an elbow injury, and that's always kind of scary, but, I think Danny dealt with something kind of similar last year too, and, he's never been the most durable guy, but he also hasn't really missed huge chunks of full seasons of time before. So hopefully this is another one of those cases where just something's flaring up. He realizes that it's a problem and he's got to shut down for a while and that he can ramp back up. But I think we can expect to not see him around for some time. But Cody Thunderberg is on the active roster as the lefty now. So let's talk about some minor league stuff, taking a look at some minor league highlights, starting with Dasan Hill, who pitched on Saturday. So he had a start skipped. So that was just kind of noteworthy seeing him out there. Only went 2 1/3 innings. Didn't pitch amazingly, no hits, but didn't pitch all that great. And I realized I'm in the way here of Andrew Morris is who we're looking at. Weird shot. Mickey Gasper drops this third strike, allowing that guy to reach, but he helped out his buddy later on. Morris pitched great today. 5 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts. Here at Gasper to end the first inning. Calls for a review on that one and helps out Morris get that final out of the inning. Morris, he only has a 3.44 ERA this year, but a 1.69 WHIP. Part of that is because he has a 4.26 BABIP against on the season, Morris does. That is 51 points higher than any other qualified pitcher in the International League. A 4.26 BABIP. Now, some of that is because guys are hitting the ball hard off of him, but some of it is because of not great defense. So kind of goes both ways. But today, Morris took care of most of the outs himself. 8 strikeouts in a tremendous start for him. Great to see out Andrew Morris. He's got 35 strikeouts in 36 2/3 innings now. Here's the Baseball Savant data from his outing. You can see he was pretty four-seamer heavy, which I think is a good kind of point to focus on for him, that 94, 95 mile per hour fastball up in the zone. The cutter's kind of more of a get me over. He did get 6 whiffs on it, but that's a little bit more of a get me over, almost like kind of a pitch to contact type pitch. In this Iowa Cubs lineup he faced, that's a really good lineup. But it was fun seeing him break out his curveball. He only threw this curveball 3 times, and he got a swinging strike on all 3 of his curveballs, really strategically busting that out. You can see his fastball averaged 95. He topped out at 97.3, and then a lot of other stuff is in the 90s, mid-80s, and then that curveball comes in at 75, and it's just like it's almost like when Corey Lewis drops a knuckleball in there. It's almost like that pitch doesn't need to be that great of a pitch just to be that big of a change of pace. And to only throw it a few times, I think that's kind of the secret of that curveball for Morris. And again, he loves to throw his fastball up in the zone. So one of the problems with curveballs is they have that bump out of the hand, so they're kind of easy to identify sometimes out of the hand. But when you're throwing fastballs up in the zone, that curveball tunnels better with that pitch. So I think he's kind of figured out a way to deploy that interestingly. And this pitch mix in general is just, this is an evolution of Morris that we're seeing. He's tinkering around with this quite a bit, and it was just great to see him pitch well today and have a good start. Moving on to some hitting highlights from over the weekend, starting off with Emmanuel Rodriguez, who hits a home run here on Friday. It was his 3rd home run in 8 games. He has a 940 OPS so far in May. So he had been off to a pretty slow start, kind of had a thumb injury that bugged him, but he's really caught fire this month, and it's great to see. Kaelen Culpepper had his first multi-homer game of his career, his minor league career, on Friday. He's elevating the ball really well. That's kind of a thing that he tried to tweak his swing late in his college career to do more. And look at this one, opposite field. There's some shallow parts of that stadium in Cedar Rapids, but that's a big part of that ballpark. 390 out there the other way. So this is a dude that has some real power. He's a shortstop and he's not the biggest guy, but he has some power, and they got him on the corn hat and the big chain. That's their home run celebration. Kyler Fedko, man, this guy, 25 years old, former 12th round pick. He has more home runs by a lot than last year. He hit 3 home runs last year. He's got 8 already this season. He homered on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm not sure what's going on with Kyler Fedko. He's a pretty good defensive outfielder, too. So this is a very interesting guy to take note of, who is breaking out in a big way. Rayne Doncon wanted to just call out. He started a rehab assignment with the Mighty Muscles on Friday. So both Peyton Eels for now and Rayne Doncon are with the Mighty Muscles rehabbing. So that's wonderful. I imagine Eels probably is going to get moved up eventually before too long. Kyle DeBarge, this was on Saturday. You're going to see him steal 3 bases. He not only is he already has 20 steals, but he's 20 for 20. I think he's played like 30-some games, 31, 32 games, and he has 20 stolen bases for Kyle DeBarge. Look at, he's just dirtball. I love that. So Kyle DeBarge has been amazing. Here's just a really snapshot of all of the OPS leaders in the system on full season teams entering Sundays. That doesn't include Sundays. You had to be qualified. You had to be on a full season team. So there's a rundown. Carson McCusker and Ryan Fitzgerald, those guys were made it to the show finally for good reason. They were tearing it up for the Saints. Jay Thomason for Fort Myers. Want to mention that he is currently on the IL. Don't have any additional details on that injury, but hopefully he'll be back before too long. He was really fun to watch. Then you see DeBarge, not just stealing bases, he also has a 931 OPS. He has an OBP over 500 this month and more walks than strikeouts. So Kyle DeBarge, when you factor in on the bases, he might be dominating games more than anybody in the system right now. I mean, this is as dominant of a per player when you combine what he's doing at the plate and on the bases as I can really recall. Obviously, it's kind of only Cedar Rapids. I'll put that in quotes because he's still a young guy. It's not like he's old for the level or anything. But it's really exciting. And as somebody who didn't really get on the DeBarge bandwagon, I'm starting to get really excited and having a lot of fun watching him play. Kyler Fedko, again, it's not just that he's hitting home runs all of a sudden. He's also got a 926 OPS. He's playing really well. Nate Baez, who catches some but plays a lot of first and DHs for the Colonels at 6. Gabriel Gonzalez, number 7, guy who came over in the Jorge Polanco trade. And then Culpepper, 8. That's a great 884 OPS for a guy who plays a good shortstop. He might be coming up. We were talking about this in the Twins Daily comments of my Friday minor league report. Somebody was wondering if Kaelen Culpepper might get called up soon, and I called out that Luke Keishel last year, who he's a year ahead of Culpepper, so he kind of at the same stage last year. Keishel got called up just before the start of June, late May. So it wouldn't be nuts to see Kaelen Culpepper get called up within a couple weeks up to Double-A. That would be fun if they did that. Kadeem Jow, 9th on this list. That's the guy who leads all of minor league baseball in hit by pitches, or he did earlier this week. At least I haven't checked since then. And then Mike Ford, the Saints first baseman, guy who's got a lot of big league time, I think most recently with the Mariners. So those are your system OPS leaders. Technically, Brian Acuna is qualified. He's on the FCL Twins. Their season just started, so he hasn't played a ton. But he was in their top 10 if we included short season teams. So I know I don't talk about them a lot. I only talk about the full season teams, but just want to give him a shout out. Guy worth paying attention to. A guy who's gotten some love on some prospect lists. He's related. He's an Acuna, so he's got some name recognition. And he's got some skills too, but I've never really gotten too hyped about him, but he's going to make me, basically, the way he's playing early on here. So he's a guy to take note of. Anyway, thank you so much for checking this one out. Really appreciate you. In case you missed it, this is the new schedule. We're doing system recaps on Thursday and Sunday nights. I'll be recording a podcast episode tomorrow evening, so be on the lookout for that wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can also watch/listen to it here right on YouTube. So anyway, we'll talk again soon. You have a good one.